All right. Hello, boys, ladies, and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing good. Can you guys hear me? Is everything all right? Is everything working as intended? Okay, perfect. And yes, thank you, Red Herring, for reminding me to get the latency right. Yeah, so basically, um, as you can see, I have like the Battle Right gameplay trailer open, and it has a link with the game dev stream I'm gonna be making. But basically, I'm gonna show you this trailer, not all of it, obviously, but just certain parts of it, and then I'm gonna explain to you that what I decided to do, like some of you who are in the Discord server, uh, maybe you saw, maybe you didn't, but basically I put up a message like an hour or two ago, I don't remember now, where I said that I'm going to do specific game mechanics and like based on what you guys are interested in, right? But since you guys haven't proposed anything yet, I'm going to already start by making, as you can see by the title of this stream, it's making a platformer part one. And what I'm gonna do is make a very basic 3D platformer, and then like over like each stream we're gonna be adding like new mechanics. And typically when I make video games, the way I make video games is that like I don't look at a specific genre and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that exact genre, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna do a platformer, I'm gonna do an FPS, I'm gonna do a tower defense, whatever it is, right? What I do is I'm the type of person that I play a bunch of different games, right? So like for instance, right now the game I'm making is a strategy game, but it has a bunch of mechanics that I've taken from completely different genres, right? Like it's gonna have like certain roguelike elements to it. It's gonna have like sort of diplomacy mechanics and a bunch of other stuff like that, right? That some of it is more associated with strategy games, others not, right? And so what I'm hoping to do with my game dev tutorials is start with a platformer and then transform it into some kind of hybrid of a bunch of different things, right? Based on what you guys are interested in seeing and also like what I think of adding to this type of like weird prototype in order to see where it goes, right? And so here I'm gonna show you like this trailer here, right? Oh, slow the volume a bit. Okay. Oh wait, yeah, there you go. So look at the way that the characters are moving and how they can like jump around and like I guess like do ranged melee damage, whatever, right? So the idea is that I'm going to right now for part one of making this platform, and maybe even part two, I'm gonna try to do something similar to this, right? Now in this case, well here we're looking at behind the characters, then the camera shifts and this is the actual gameplay camera where it's looking from above. In my prototype, I'm going to be doing it kind of like third person, not necessarily over the shoulder, but kind of. And we're going to have like some basic movements like WASD to move, spacebar to jump, etc. So I spent all of this morning from 8 a.m. till now basically adding the basic control. So I've added a bunch of stuff that I obviously didn't show on stream, but I'm gonna go through all of it and explain to you guys like each thing, what it does and everything, right? Because since now I assume you guys kind of understand the basics of coding, I'm gonna be able to explain to you guys what I did and kind of like reverse engineer and like show you like, oh, here's the code, here's what each line of code does and everything. And then we're gonna start adding new stuff. And the reason why I did a lot of it before the stream is because since I'm making a strategy game set in space with spaceships, I've never needed to do like a jumping mechanic or, you know, like normal player controls, right? Like I control the camera, but the camera is like a floating camera. I covered this kind of at the end of last stream. So I never needed to do a jumping mechanic. So this is the first time in my life that I've actually done a jumping mechanic. So I wanted to make sure it doesn't bug out, right? So that things work smoothly, right? So that we don't end up with like a scuffed hour like at the end of last stream, right? So now we're gonna close this. Yes, perfect. Okay, we're gonna close this. And as this is what the game looks like now, as you can see, I've modified the player character. It it looks like this fucking monstrosity. Okay. Actually, I'm gonna remove the this thing here because it's not necessary anymore. The legs placeholder. There you go. There you go. I'm first timer too, bruh. Yeah, but you guys are gonna see. Hopefully what I'm gonna do is gonna be fairly understandable, right? So as you can see here on the right, my player script has gotten a lot heavier. Like I've added a bunch of shit, right? So I'm gonna go through all of this and explain to you guys like what it is, right? Because basically everything from that goes below this variable here, the player movement speed variable, all of this is new, right? That thing seems to have all the important parts. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I know it looks really weird, like really silly and stuff, but basically like this sphere here at the center is the torso, and it's going to be rotating. This is the shoulders, just to like give us a visual of the shoulders, and this here is like the hips that are like technically facing the opposite way, and it's just to have an idea of like where the character is facing. I didn't have time to add code that's gonna make the hips face the way the character is moving, but anyways, that's how it works. I'm gonna show you guys quickly what I've managed to do so far, right? So I'm gonna press play. Those are some thick hips. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm gonna show you guys what I've managed to do so far, and the idea is that this is basically gonna turn into a prototype probably for my next game, but I'm gonna use this prototype to show you guys how to do some really basic stuff, right? So right now I'm gonna show you how I'm moving stuff. Then I'm gonna go back over to some of the we're gonna recap what I did last stream, and then I'm gonna explain to you all the new stuff I've done, right? And then we're gonna start adding like a bunch of new mechanics just to like for fun, right? To add content and to show you guys to basically go over what I did last stream exactly, like to finish up the collision, to show you a new method of doing collisions, stuff like that, right? So just give me 30 seconds. I'm gonna go fill up my water bottle because I just realized I forgot to fill it up. Be right back. Alright, I'm back. Okay, so now I'm gonna press play and I'm gonna show you what I've done. So we're gonna be able to control the what's it called? The rotation of the torso, because what I decided to do is let's make some kind of mech game, right? So hold on. So if we do this, let's say YouTube, I don't know, let's Google some mech games. Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't know. Mech games. Roasty. Anyways, Mecha Break has tons of style and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, let's look at Mecha Break.
Peacekeepers prepare for combat. Or macros. Okay. Ahead of the open beta.
Okay, so hold on. Mecha Break gameplay. Mecha. Ooh. Booty. God damn.
The pilot.
By the way, this game's made in Unity, so. Jesus. Alright. Let's look at the fucking mechs. Okay.
Initiating system diagnostics.
Okay, so this looks very similar to
Fluid armor
Armored Core.
Corixium engine
Yeah.
power supply confirmed.
And the whole thing
Incoming
is
urgent
moving
message from
together,
Space
basically.
Garrison.
Attention! We are under
Alright. Hold on, let's see some more
Well
combat
said.
gameplay.
The target is locked.
Yeah. This almost looks like a rail shooter, the way it's done, right? Hold on, let's look at a few more things. Why is it in 4K? Jesus. Okay, this is like a cutscene. Who cares? Okay, another cutscene. Jesus.
Injecting Corixium particle. Combat in the area.
Yeah. Okay. So it looks similar to Armored Core.
Sure. It's
Yeah, kind of. Okay. So my controls are not gonna be like this. Let me see Mech Warrior. Let's see if Mech Warrior. No. Not Mech Warrior. Mech Games. I wanna see. Not Mecha Break. Oh. Mech Arena. Okay, let's see. Mech Arena. Two, I think. Mech Arena. PC. What the fuck is that game? God damn it. Bruh. On Steam. Mech Games Steam. Why is this so complicated? Mech Warriors 5. Let's see what the gameplay looks like. Show me gameplay. I don't want to see black women. I want to see gameplay. Okay. Ah, fuck. This was for like 1 second. Okay, you can kind of see it, but it's really unclear. Okay, so basically, here you can see the legs are pointing that way. Okay, let's take a screenshot. It's gonna be easier for me to draw over it. Okay, so here, okay, are the legs and they are pointing that way. But then here is the torso and it's pointing that way. Those are the types of controls I'm gonna be making, right? In the game right now, but since I said it's a platformer, we're gonna have controls like these, where like the torso and the legs aren't rotating together, unlike Mecha Break. But then initially we're gonna start with some basic platforming mechanic. I'm gonna take inspiration from Mario because it's like the quintessential platformer. So initially for today, I think what I'm gonna try to do is some kind of collision detection that's going to allow us to like stomp on enemies, like or just to jump on top of something and like land on it, right? Ezra. Yeah, so Goon Sesh, that's not Gal Gadot. I wasn't around for the last 2 streams. It's over for me, boys. No, don't worry, Bacon. Like, if you want, like, the VODs are up. So if you want, you can catch back up with the older streams. And if you have any questions at the end of this stream, I'm gonna put up the link in chat for the Discord server. So once you join the Discord server, if you have any questions at any point in time, just drop them in, and whenever like I see them, I'll try my best to answer them. Okay, so yeah, so as I said, like this is the kind of gameplay or like movement system I worked on this morning before the stream, where like the torso is moving independently based on the mouse cursor's position on screen, and the legs are going to be moving separately. But I didn't have time to add the leg rotation. So the legs are always going to be facing forward, whereas the torso for now is moving according to the design, right? So let's close this. Let's close this. Let's close this. Okay. So now I'm going to press play, and you guys are going to see based on the mouse's movements. There you go. Right? The torso is moving independently, right? Based on the mouse's movements, right? And then what I also did is that depending on depending on which way the torso is facing, we will be moving forward. So right now I'm facing here, so if I press W, I'm moving forward. S backward. Oh, well, now I fell. So let's restart. All right. There you go. If I press D, I'm moving right. If I press A, I'm moving left, like that. And then if I press space, we jump. There you go. Right. And now we can also move like that. It's a bit floaty. Eventually, I'm gonna fix that and make it a bit less floaty, but for now I only had time to do like the real basics, right? Now if I rotate, let's say the opposite way, and I press W, see, and now I press S, exactly. If I press W here, right? So basically this is how we can move, right? Depending. And again, like the legs should be following, but obviously that's not the case, you know? Exactly. There you go. Okay. So now let's go into the code, and I'm going to explain to you guys everything that I did. I added the box collider and the rigid body, but I did not put it on trigger. Okay. Because reminder that this box here, the test collider, is trigger. Trigger right here. Ah, Jesus Christ, my mom is calling me. Okay. Well, I'm not going to answer. Actually, I will answer. Be right back. Sorry. All right, sorry, boys. She called to ask me if I needed like some kind of cover for my mattress. Typical mom stuff. Anyways, back on topic. So, if you remember, this one here is a trigger, which means that it detects trigger collision. So if we press play again, my player character, there you go, because it's not a trigger, it is going to pass right through it, right? Now, hold on, let's click on the test collider. Let's remove trigger. So now I unchecked trigger, hard trigger. Yeah, okay, so now I unchecked trigger, and now if I move, see, now it's like pushing it, but it doesn't have gravity enabled, so it's floating, right? So now, if I press here gravity, it's gonna, see, it started falling. So that's generally how these things work. And the reason why I added a box collider with a rigid body that uses gravity is in order to do the jump. because the way I decide to do, because there are two ways of doing jumps in Unity. There's one where we're using the pre-made physics engine that comes with Unity, and that's why we need a box collider or any collider, but in this case I use the box collider, and a rigid body, right? But the other ways to do it manually and to simulate everything myself, but that's it's more complicated. It gives us more control, but it's more complicated. And personally, I don't need it, right? Like I'm perfectly happy with the using the physics, the built-in physics system. Yeah, that's how I went to space. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you probably had like gravity unchecked and like maybe a bunch of other stuff, right? So let's go into the code. Okay, whoops. There you go. So this is my player manager script, and as you can see, I added basically everything that's green. Oh, hold on, nope, not this. I'm going to zoom in. There you go. This is better, I hope, for you guys. Yeah. Let me know if this is good or if you'd like to zoom in a bit more. But basically, yeah, so these are the different variables I added. Again, I assume that by now you guys are familiar with floats, with booleans, you know, integers, etc., right? And as you can see here, I put something called header, right? So whenever you write something like this, what it does is in the actual component, if you can see here, it says WASD movement. It's like in bold, right? But this isn't a variable I can interact with. That's what the header is, right? The header is this, and whatever is inside the quotation marks is a what's it called? Is the title of the header, right? So here I have a header that's WASD movement, vertical movement. Here it's settings, vertical rotation limits, player stats, etc., right? So this is just to make it easier to like delineate the different variables, right? So there you go. Now here I have a bunch of other objects just in case. I'm not actually using all of them, but this is just in case. Those are the same files you were using in the previous streams, right? Exactly. Yeah. This is the exact same project I've been using so far. It's just that I spent 4 hours before the stream, so from 8 in the morning till noon, I spent like adding all of this code, fixing bugs and everything. And I'm gonna show you some of the bugs I had just to give you an idea, right? But this is once I start explaining things, right? So there you go. We're gonna be using vectors here. So for the movement and stuff. So once we get to the vectors, I'm going to re-explain vectors just in case. Okay. But yeah, so here we have the player manager object, which again, like these are public variables, which means that anybody can interact with them, which means that we can see them here, right? The player manager object, main camera object, player torso object, player legs, etc., right? Yeah. The green text are just comments. This is just stuff to like to help me, right? Like what the different things are and everything, right? So anything that is green like this doesn't get read by the code, basically. It gets ignored. To make your life easier, and it gets ignored by Unity, basically. Exactly. So a public variable means we can interact with it here in the Unity editor. It's a variable of type game object, which means that the only type of value that this can have is a reference to a game object that is either already in the scene here. If you can see on the left in the scene, it's either a game object that already exists, or if we go into the project, the assets, the prefabs, it can be a prefab game object, right? So that's what a variable of type GameObject is, right? And then here in blue is the name we have decided to give to the to this variable, right? So this variable, this public variable of type GameObject is called player manager object. This one here is called main camera object, etc., right? Here we have a bunch of different public variables of type Boolean. This one's called move forward and its value is false. A reminder that Boolean values, written Boolean like that, is a type of variable who can only have two values, either true or false. The double slashes make the null slash count. Yeah, exactly. And if, for instance, for whatever reason, I want all of this to be made null, right? To be turned into a comment, or to just not be read by the code by becoming null. Instead of doing like, where is it? This, etc., what I can do is just do this like that, right? So 1/* until the next one like that. Anything inside of this is like becomes null, basically, right? And right now I press Ctrl Z to just undo what I just did, because we do need these, right? And so these ones here are the old controls. So basically all of this here was the old script, okay? Everything starting from the vertical movement header is all new stuff that I've added, right? So this here was just the movement speed and floats that we determined, that we decided here we just put 10 as like a nice placeholder speed, right? And then these booleans become true whenever here we have like an input detection dot get key. So when we press W, move forward becomes true. And then in this other function, which is called the player horizontal movement manager, in my last stream, you're going to see it was called something else. It was called player movement manager, because at the time that was the only movement we had. Now it's different. So now, because I have vertical movement with the jumping, I renamed this by right click rename. I renamed it to player horizontal movement manager. Then here I have player vertical movement manager, where we have the jump code. And here we have the player rotation manager, which is what controls how it detects the mouse movement and stuff like that, right? So yeah. So now here I have a bunch of other booleans, like is jumping boolean. These three booleans here is moving upwards, is grounded, is falling, only exist for me to see when so basically when I press space, the player character jumps up. So I have code that I'm going to show you later that shows that detects when the player is moving upwards, and the moment it detects that, this becomes true. Then whenever the player is not moving up or down, so is on the ground, I put this as grounded. And then here is falling is whenever the player is moving downwards, right? So for now, the only code I have associated with these variables is the code that changes them from true to false. But the idea is this is a proper setup, so that if you're making a platformer game and you want to have a specific mechanic related to when the player is moving upwards, or when the player is grounded, or when the player is whatever, like this can be used, right? Because I think, let me see, if I spam the space bar, I think we should be able to just fly up in the air. Yeah, there you go. See, so now I stop pressing space. Are we? Yeah, we're slowly falling back down, right? So basically I have like an infinite number of jumps, right? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so this is a bit, right? Like if I start falling here, well, I'm actually not falling. You see? This is such a mess, right? But as you can see, like this is not how it's supposed to work, right? So for instance, what I can do is here in the if input.get key down space is jumping, well, what I can say is also if is grounded equals true, then we just copy pasted this inside and we erase it. And now we're gonna wait for it to compile. We're gonna wait for the code to compile. We're saving everything. Then we press space. So now I press space once, it jumps. Now I'm gonna spam. See, now I'm spamming space and it's only jumping when I'm on the ground. See? And if you look here on the right, you can see the is moving upwards, is grounded, is falling. Now it's is moving upwards, is falling, is grounded. Is moving upwards, is falling, is grounded, etc. Right? So this is how you start making like the basics of a platformer game, right? So here again, an if statement has a condition. If the condition is true, stuff happens. And then you can add else, which is basically like in any other instance where this condition isn't happening, do this, right? Now the issue, well, it's not really an issue, but the idea is very simple. It's since this always happens whenever this initial thing is untrue, right? It's technically suboptimal just because this is always running, right? Like basically every frame, this Boolean variable, the is jumping variable, is constantly reset to false, right? And so it's just suboptimal, right? It's not optimal just because it's always modifying the value of is jumping to false, even if it's already false. It's still updating it, right? So if we want to only change this if it's true, right? But like basically when the player presses space, is jumping becomes true only if it's already grounded, right? Otherwise it automatically becomes false. But if it's already false because the player hasn't pressed space, we don't need to reset it back to false because like it's already false, right? So all we can do is do else if is jumping equals true. There you go. So now this will only happen if this is not true and if this is true, right? So that way we save up on some power. Again, this is very minimal stuff, right? So here we can do the same thing. Move forward equals true. This here was just an example, so we're not touching it. If move left equals true. If move backwards equals true. If move right equals true. If move upward equals true. If move downward. Yeah, there you go. So now this is, again, this just makes it so that this thing doesn't always run, but instead only runs when needed, which is that when this is true, right? Simple. Then here, let's say the player presses W. So move forward becomes true so long as the player is pressing W. Then what we have here, the old code, let me just change it back. So we're gonna remove the new stuff and instead We're gonna do this like that. We're gonna do this like that. Also, as you can see here, I was using the player object, which I renamed to player manager object. So now all I'm gonna have to do is copy this. There you go, there you go, there you go. And in case you're wondering, I can't just right click rename. I cannot rename this element because it's not a variable. Oh, sorry, it's not a variable that exists anymore, right? So that's why I need to manually do this, right? This is a variable that exists, so this I can rename, right? So now if we go back to the project, there you go. Now I'm pressing space. There you go. So as you can see, technically the movement's the same, right? But the thing is, let's say I rotate here. Now, if I press W, it's supposed to go forward, right? Based on where I'm facing, but it's still going. Now I'm gonna press S, right? I'm pressing W, I'm pressing S. I'm facing this way, I'm pressing W, I'm pressing S. I'm facing this way, I'm pressing S, pressing W. I'm pressing A, I'm pressing D. You see what I mean? So this was the old way this was working, right? Exactly, like these weird tank controls basically, right? So I only kept this to show you guys what the old code was. And now the new code is this. So I'm gonna erase the old code. And I'm gonna only keep the new one and explain to you how the new code works, right? There you go. There you go. There you go. Oops. There you go. Also, what I'm thinking of doing is I'm going to try to find a way to compress maybe my project or something like that, to compress it so that I can possibly link it in the Discord server so that you guys can have direct access to it whenever you want, right? Because I think that would be helpful for you guys, right? So the way this works, right? And like, okay, yeah. So the way this works is that, let's say if I want to here move upward, like I'm pressing E, E is going to make the player game object move upward by changing its position, right? So here we take the player manager object dot, we go into its transform dot specifically to its position, and we modify it by adding. So plus equals means we don't replace its value, because if we just replaced its value, it would be teleporting basically, right? Instead, we just add to its already existing value a player torso object dot we go into its transform dot up. This gives us a vector, right? So as I said, we were going to go back to vectors. If you guys remember when I showed you last stream, hold on here, let's say we select this. Here you can see the gizmos, right? So, oh fuck, yeah, there you go. So the blue arrow is a vector 3, which has the value of 0, 0, 1. So 0 on the x, 0 on the y, 1 on the z. To go backwards, it's 0 on the x, 0 on the y, minus 1. Here the red arrow is 1 on the x, 0 on the y, and 0 on the z. So that's why it goes to the right, and etc, right? You guys get the idea. And the thing, what I think AGT Infinity, I think, said in the last stream, let me just pull it up. Game dev, hold on. Let me just studio, content, live. There we go. Let's go here. Let's go here. All right. Okay, there you go. Let me just show you guys this. Yeah, so AGT infinity, very perfectly explained what a vector is. It's a coordinate or direction. It's 2, 3, or 4, so he means vector 2, vector 3, or vector 4. But in 3D, we're mostly using vector 3s, starting with X, Y, and then Z, and W. W, like, that's for vector 4s, but I've legit never used vector 4s. I've never had to use them, so unfortunately, I can't really explain properly what they are. Color can also be represented as a vector 3, yeah, RGB. So in this case, the X value would represent the red coloring, the Y value would represent the green, and the Z value would represent the blue. That's also why here the Z axis is blue, the red, the X axis is red, and the Y axis is green, right? Or 4 including alpha. Yeah, so in this instance, so I guess I have used vector 4s, but I've only used them for stuff like UI or stuff like that. Basically, alpha means how transparent something is, right? But that's the only context in which I've used alpha, right? So let's go back to here. Yeah, so basically this here is a vector 3 that represents the up direction, right? So whenever I press E, move upward becomes true. So the player manager object, its transform, well, its position through a reference to its transform goes up by the player movement speed. So this is the direction in which it's moving, multiplied by the movement speed, multiplied by time dot delta time, because as I said, time dot delta time normalizes and regulates the speed at which things are moving. Because if we don't have time dot delta time, it's going to move in an irregular speed depending on the frame rate, right? Whereas because we're multiplying it by time dot delta time, the frame rate does not affect the speed at which things are moving. So in other words, things are moving at a consistent speed, right? Okay, now here, as you can see, I'm not using player torso object dot transform dot up, or in this case, it would be transform.right minus transform.right, which is the same thing as transform.left. But for simplicity's sake, we just use the negatives of each other, right? Or rather, in this case, it would be minus transform.forward, etc., right? Like if I do Control Z and I show back all the old code, here you can see transform.forward, minus transform.right, minus transform.forward for backward movement, transform.right, etc. Now I'm going to press Control Y and redo all the changes I've made. So what I did here, okay, is I have the player torso object.transform.forward and transform.right, and here I created a temporary variable that is a vector 3 called flat forward. And so the flat forward is equal to the player torso object.transform.forward. So the forward of where the torso is facing, but immediately afterwards, I do flat forward.y. So I specifically take a reference to the y value of this vector 3. Because again, this vector 3, it has 3 values: the x value, the y value, the z value. I go into the y value specifically and I reset it to 0. And then I do flat forward dot normalize. So what this does is that it takes whatever the actual value of flat forward is, and then it normalizes it. So it reduces it to something like 0, 0, 1, right? So hold on, let me point. So paint. So whenever you're doing, whenever you're using vector 3s, right? You have a vector 3, and its name is I don't know, test vector, whatever. So that's the name of the, god damn it. Here you go. Oh my god, this is fucking triggering me. There you go. Okay, so vector 3 test vector equals new vector 3 with it. Well, actually, I'm going to do it in code. It's going to be easier to visualize. So let's say here I'm going to create a vector 3 called test vector equals, so now we give it a direct value, which is going to be new vector 3, and what's in parentheses are the values. So in this case, let's say we're going to do 0, 0, 0, right? So that means it's going to have a value of 0 on the z-axis, 0 on the y, 0 on the z, right? So here, by taking this thing's value might be, I don't know, like 112, 16, and here like minus 18 or whatever, right? Like it might be something really weird like that, but by normalizing it, it translates it basically to, in this case, 1. So hold on. So it's as if we do that. Hold on. Test vector equals new vector 3, 1, 1, minus 1, right? Because since vector 3s are directions, we don't need the length of the direction, right? All we need to know is in which direction is it pointing, right? So basically, here x is positive, y is positive, z is negative. So it's the same thing as if we said this. The thing is that if we don't do it like this, then the movement is going to get all fucked up, okay? The movement is not going to behave normally, but by normalizing it, it's as if I do this, basically. It's as if I transform this, I take this, normalize it into this, and then everything is like normal. Everything is working as it's supposed to work, right? I know this was very convoluted, but again, vector 3s are fucking convoluted, and I always had difficulty in high school with my vector classes in physics, so I'm not the best at explaining this. AGT Infinity explained it really well, but that's the idea, right? So what happens, okay, is that we initially create a vector 3 called flat forward. I'm going to rename it to v3 just so we know it's a variable of type vector 3. Same thing with the flat right, v3. There you go. And what this does is that it takes the I'm having a brain fart. It takes the forward vector, the current forward vector of the player torso object, right, based on its through its transform. Then we go into specifically the y value and we reset it to 0, right? And after resetting it to 0, we normalize so that the x and the z axes are also normalized, right? And what this does is that this is what allows us when we're moving. Hold on, let's wait for it to compile. Oh, not this. Come on. Oh my god. Bruh. All right, there you go. Okay, this is what allows us to move based on where we're facing, right? So even if I'm like looking down, if I press W, I'm only gonna go on a flat direction here, right? So I'm gonna show you guys what, like, one of the bugs I had, right? So let's say here we just remove these two lines, right? Or in fact, let's say I just remove, no, I remove this thing here. I don't know why the Y is not. Okay, well, whatever. This might just be a visual bug, whatever, right? There you go. So let's see if it's going to give me some kind of error message. Hopefully not. Is it giving me an error message? No, so it might just be a visual bug in Visual Studio. Okay, so now I'm looking downwards, and as you can see, so when I press S, I'm going up in the air, right? Because it's based on wherever I'm facing. So here, if I press S, I'm trying to go down. You know what I mean? If I press W, I'm gonna go into the sky. You see what I mean? So it's really weird, right? So that's why we set the Y to 0. So that way, whatever it normalizes, the Y is already at 0. So the Y is always going to be 0, basically. You know? And so just by adding this line of code here and this line of code here, now if I look up, for instance, if I look up, see, I'm only moving forward. If I look down and I press S, I'm not gonna fly into the sky. You see what I mean? There you go. Yeah. So that's the new updated horizontal movement. Okay. And again, this is a function that controls the horizontal movement. Sorry. But it won't. So like, for instance, if I do this in the update, yeah, that's why I chose Y. That's why I'm not touching X or Z, right? Because if I also did X equals 0 and Z equals 0, it wouldn't move, right? So now I disabled the player horizontal movement. So now I'm gonna spam WASD and nothing's gonna happen, right? See here, it's detecting forward, left, right, whatever, but nothing's happening because I disabled it, right? So whenever you create a function, remember to enable it by writing it here in the update, right? Now we're gonna move to the vertical movement manager, right? Which is the jump button, okay? And if I hold control and click on this, it's gonna move me directly to where it is, right? So let's say I'm wherever the fuck. Let's say I control click on horizontal movement, bam. Now we're at horizontal movement. So that's practical. Same thing, like I have the move backward variable here. If I control click it, it brings me to its origin, basically, right? So now we're gonna go through the vertical movement variables, and then I'm gonna show you the code in action, okay? So here I have public boolean is jumping, is false. So whenever I press space, this is gonna become true. As I covered earlier, these three are only there to let me know when it is that I'm moving upwards, when it is that I am grounded, and when it is that I'm falling, basically. These two things I'm gonna cover later on because I was trying to follow this guy's tutorial because again, watch his tutorials. His tutorials are amazing, and as I said, I've never done a jump mechanic ever in my life. This is the first time I'm doing it, so I looked up his tutorial. The only unfortunate thing is that in the video he's doing it using Unity 2D. I'm using Unity 3D, so there are differences, and so that's why I wasn't able to properly adapt this in time, so I didn't use it. But I'm gonna use these variables to show you how to do another game mechanic, right? How to do a timer, but we're gonna do this later on. Maybe tomorrow, I'm not sure. Depending on how much time we have, because I've already been streaming for like almost an hour now, okay? This here is a public a variable of type rigid body, and it's called the main RB. RB stands for rigid body, right? Because sometimes you might have different rigid bodies, whatever. For now, we only have one, but I still named it main rigid body, right? This here, the public float, is a public float called jump height. So this is, let's say, the maximum height at which I'll be jumping, okay? Again, like if you watch the guy's video, Game Dev Beginner, if you watch his tutorial, he explains what this is. This basically allows us to control how high, like what the maximum height of a jump is. And this here is basically the force at which we're gonna jump, so the speed at which we're gonna jump. Basically, and this here is a gravity scale and a fall gravity scale. Again, this was based on 2D jumping. From my stuff, it doesn't exactly work. So basically, these two variables and these two variables aren't really meaningful for today's stream. Like, they're not really doing anything, right? Hold on. There you go. All right. So let's go to the vertical movement, okay? So again, here in the late update, which here all of the players' movements controls, blah, blah, blah. The late update happens only once at the end of all of the updates. So update happens once per frame, happens 60 times. Where is it? Here, right? Here we have update is called once per frame, so 60 times per second. This happens only once per second at the end of the last update, so 1 times per second after the 60th update, right? So then, let's say, exactly, void late update, exactly. So here is where we're gonna check like what key the player has pressed, whatever. So whenever the player presses the space bar, only if he is already grounded, then he is jumping, right? Is jumping equals true. So here in the player vertical movement manager, we have the jump spacebar. So when is jumping equals true, we have the jump force, which I updated using this mathematical equation, which is really fucking weird. Honestly, watch the Game Dev Beginners tutorial and you're gonna understand. Here, it's basically some kind of weird, what's it called? It's some kind of weird equation that he knows about. Well, this is square root of all of this, followed by being multiplied by the mass of the rigid body, right? So all you need to know, like, watch his video, he explains what it is, but all you need to know is that this makes it so that the jump force is based on our jump height, as well as like the gravity and the gravity scale, which in this case is just 1, etc., right? Like, he explains it. Like, I can't really explain it because I'm not like, again, this guy's way more advanced than I am. All you need to know is that this works, okay? This basically updates the jump force to be based on our jump height, right? And then once we have that, we do main rigid body dot add force, which this is like a mathematical type of equation or whatever, right? It's a method, I think is what they're called. Yeah, exactly, it just works. So this method, the add force method, first you add a vector 3 in order to know in which direction we're going to add the force. And add force only works with the physics. So that's why we add it to a rigid body, right? So reminder that in order for physics to work, we need a collider and then we need a rigid body. So now we're applying a force in the up direction, which is based on the player manager object, right? And by the way, like vectors like this up vector are already normalized, right? So this is player manager object dot transform dot up is the normalized vector of the player object, like of the up direction based on the player manager object, right? So we have a normalized vector up multiplied by the jump force, right, which we updated in this line here. And then we add a force mode, which is like how is it going to apply the force? So force mode, we have acceleration, impulse, velocity change, etc., etc. Impulse means that all of the force is going to be added all at once, right? Because if we do acceleration, let's modify this to acceleration. Let's look at this. Come on. There you go. So now if I remember correctly, acceleration, it's barely going to move up, basically, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. See? It's barely moving up because the way acceleration works is that the jump force is going to be applied continuously, right? So remember how up here we based it on whether it's grounded or not. So let's just nullify this for a second, right? And let's just do is jumping is true like we did earlier, which means that I can basically double, quadruple, quintuple jump. I can jump as long as I press space, right? But in this case, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold the space bar, and you're going to see me start going up, but like accelerating up. So initially I'm going to be moving slowly, and I'm going to start moving faster and faster, right? So if I hold space, in theory, I should be able to, come on. Yeah, exactly. It's not, it's barely moving basically, right? So hold on. So now let's just change this. Let's nullify this line and do jump force F equals, let's say 50. Okay. Now let's see. Let's see. Yeah. Now I'm like spamming it. I'm spamming it and I'm barely moving up, right? I'm barely moving up, right? Hold on. So again, this is why acceleration isn't the right one, because it's like it only works when you code it in a certain way where the add force is being applied every single frame, right? But because this is based on player controls, it's only applied whenever I'm pressing space, and so it's just like it's not working basically, as you've obviously seen, right? Whereas impulse means it applies the entire force all at once, right? So let's go back to here. Let's remove this. Let's remove that. There you go. And now we're back here, right? So now it applies impulse force, and then this is the one of the variables I told you not to really worry about because it doesn't really matter, right? So there you go. And then here is just the code that determines like how it's gonna detect whether we're moving upwards, downwards, or we're grounded, right? So here we're gonna add detect whenever the player is airborne and moving upwards. All right. This detects whenever the player is not airborne, and this here, let's do it like that, and this here, this detects whenever the player is airborne but falling. Yeah, but falling. There you go. And this here is a bunch of other bullshit. I had an is airborne variable and whatever, but it's not, as I said, like I didn't manage to make it work. So we'll talk about like this variable here and this variable a bit later. And then finally the player rotation manager, which is what allows us to know which allows us to detect the mouse input, and then what's it called? And then yeah, detect the mouse input and then rotate accordingly. And doing rotations is incredibly complicated. It's even more complicated than jumping or whatever, because for all sorts of weird mathematical reasons, it's actually incredibly difficult to simulate rotations, right? There's a whole Wikipedia article about it that explains why. Like, let me just Google it. Quaternions. Right? There we go. There's all of this fucking Wikipedia article and everything that explains why we use quaternions, why we use Euler angles, etc., etc., right? Like, it's fucking complicated. I'm not getting into it. Love me some quaternions, and exactly, bro. Like, it's a pain in the ass, right? Instead, go to this guy's thing here, and this article explains incredibly well how to do rotations. Also, watch his video. Actually, watch the video first, then read the article, and here you can have the very different types of rotations you can do, right? He even shows you how to do certain rotations, etc., etc. Like, it's a very big article, as you can see, but it's incredibly useful. Okay, again, this guy offers the best tutorials, right? And as you can see, I'm using a lot of his code in order to simulate how my planets in my game are orbiting the stars and everything, right? So like when my game's gonna be ready and you guys are gonna start playing it and everything, you're gonna be able to see the planets orbiting in real time using the code that this guy provided, right? So again, this is why this guy is like your number one source, right? Like, I'm here to show you guys the basics, but this guy use this guy's tutorials to learn how to do some real shit, right? Some really good shit, right? So again, so basically here we have a float, which is mouse x, which is equal to the input dot get axis of this is the name of the axis that we're getting, right? So what this does is that it detects any move, basically it detects the coordinates of the player's mouse on the x-axis, right? So because the mouse is on the screen, right, it's only ever how can I say, it's only ever on using a vector 2, right? So x is, and typically I think 0 starts at the bottom left corner, right? So basically it's like when I'm doing this, when I'm moving my mouse sideways, my mouse horizontally, I'm moving it on the x-axis. When I'm moving it vertically, I'm moving it on the y-axis, and when I'm moving it diagonally, I'm moving it on both axes, right? And so what this does is it takes the player input, right, which is like the speed at which I'm moving it, and then it's multiplying it by the horizontal sensitivity, and then it's doing the same thing with the y-axis. So if I control click, these here they only exist to control the sensitivity, right? So here I put them on default at 1, right? Hold on, let's go back to here. So I put them on default at 1. Let's see here. Yeah, settings, vertical sensitivity, horizontal sensitivity. Let's change it to like 10. And you're gonna see the camera's gonna start moving like crazy, okay? I don't know what that word means, red herring. All right, so let's put it at, let's put the x-axis, right? So as you can see, now it's like, it's crazy, like it moves super quickly, right? Whereas, yeah. Oh, okay, no, never mind. That was the y-axis. So the vertical one is moving like crazy. The horizontal one, not so much, right? If I put the horizontal one at 100, see now it's like it's almost breaking because it's being multiplied by so much that it's like, yeah, it makes no sense. You know, so. Ah, Jared for bless you, I think. All right, well, thank you very much, Red Herring. There you go. Okay, so there you go. And then the yaw and the pitch are the technical terms used for the rotation. So rotating on the on basically rotating horizontally is the yaw, and the pitch is the vertical, right? And yeah, subtract because moving the mouse up is usually look up, whatever. Then we clamp the pitch to avoid flipping. So what this means is that we clamp it so that I don't end up. Let me show you. So that when I look up, I don't end up like. Hold on. Like I don't end up basically looking all the way up, right? So hold on, let's remove this line of code here. There you go. All right. So see, now I can go all the way up, and if I keep going up, oh, all of a sudden we just 360'd. And we can 360 again, right? Because since we're making some kind of mech-like controls, it's okay for us to be able to do 360s on the horizontal axis, but not on the vertical, right? Because now, see, shit's weird, basically, right? So this line here allows us to prevent this from happening, basically, right? Then create the target rotation. Here we create a temporary variable of type quaternion called the target rotation, which is a quaternion.euler, blah blah blah. Again, this is fucking complicated shit. I'm sorry, but I'm not getting into it. Watch the rotation tutorial from Game Dev Beginner. And then here we actually do the rotation, and we're using a quaternion.slurp, which this slurp is what makes it smooth, right? Because if we weren't using slurp, if we weren't using quaternion.slurp, and we were using something else, it wouldn't be smooth, right? So hopefully this was a fairly concrete explanation of all the code I've added, right? Like that, basically. So now it's smooth. There's a limit to how high up we can look and how far down we can look, etc., right? Exactly, there you go. That's good. Okay. So now, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to add a cooldown mechanic for the player attacks, and I'm also going to do a very basic mechanic for player attacks. And this mechanic, I think we're gonna end today's stream on that, right? On this very basic mechanic. And then on tomorrow's stream, we're gonna continue and we're gonna start adding more mechanics that are related to like combat and platforming and stuff like that, right? In order to make things more interesting. But I think for today, this was already a lot of new information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add two new mechanics. One is going to be a cooldown mechanic for the player attack, and the other one is going to be a collision mechanic to detect when the player is attacking. Okay? So just give me a moment. I'm going to explain to you guys how I'm gonna do these things, right? So we're going to create here a void player attack manager, we'll call it like that, right? And then here we're going to add player attack manager. There you go. And then here, player stats, we're gonna do it, yeah, in the player stats, okay? Hello, just here to say I really enjoyed your marathon video, but I must go now. My plant needs me. All right. Godspeed to you, Bapa Booey. I love you too, and I'm glad you really enjoyed the video. I'm not sure whenever I'm gonna be able to do more videos, because I'm really busy and I really need to get going on my game. But it's definitely not gonna be the only video. All right, so here we're gonna do player int player damage equals -1 for now. All right, don't crash on your way home. All right, then here what we're gonna do is public float, and we're going to do player attack timer equals minus, there you go. And then right underneath it, we're gonna do another float, which is I always struggle with naming timers. So the player attack cooldown timer, we're gonna rename this to cooldown timer, and then it's player attack cooldown time elapsed. Again, this is probably my one biggest flaw when it comes to coding. I'm not good at making concise variables, right? My variables are very long and it can get really fucking stupid, okay? I'm sorry in advance, but like we'll call it this for now, okay? So what we're gonna do now, okay, is we're going to copy something. Just give me a second. I'm an ugly woman, I agree. Just oh my god, oh my god, what is this? What is this? Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh, this is so cursed. This is this is disgusting. This is vile. It's from IGN! Oh no! Even IGN are taking the piss. Where's Abby? I'm going to make her an offer she can. This is insane. I'm not the only one who thought this looked really weird. Jesus, the Javas. Bruh. Only true golems create such things. Who can make something like this, bro? I don't know, man. This shit's wild. Okay, so by the way, I've never played a Mario game in my life. Okay. But I remember what they're called. So full game walkthrough. It's a 2 hour. Jesus. Alright. Not this. Alright. Let's see something else. No. Oh. Maybe this. Okay. Okay, well, he does damage with his hat. Okay, hold on. So, Mario gameplay. Let's just do some basic Mario gameplay. Maybe this is gonna be good.
Winner!
This is Mario Party. No. Basically, I'm talking about the typical Mario gameplay where you like... You deal damage to enemies by jumping on top of them, okay? This is what we're gonna be doing, okay? But I'm gonna put a cooldown on it just for the simple excuse of showing you how to do timers, okay? So basically, this is the cooldown timer. This is going to be the let's say it's 5 seconds. This means that we're gonna be able to do damage to enemies only once every 5 seconds. Okay, and this here is the actual time elapsed of the cooldown, right? And so whenever this is equal to this, we're gonna be able to attack, right? So we're gonna public bool can attack bool equals false, right? So whenever this is equal to this is going to be true. And whenever this is true, it means that if the player falls on top of an enemy, they're going to be able to do damage to the enemy. Okay? So hold on. So, how are we going to do this? We're going to go into the attack manager, okay? And we're going to do, hold on. Let me take a screenshot of this. Okay. Like a screenshot like that, just to make things easier for us, right? So we're gonna move here. So that way, whenever I want to look back at the variables, I just click this, right? Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're going to make it so that whenever the can attack is false, the player attack cooldown time elapsed is going to be going up until it becomes the same value as the player attack cooldown timer. Okay, or we can do it. I'm going to show you the different ways we can do timers, right? But it's very simple. Okay, so we're going to do, what was it? It's can attack bool. So if can attack bool equals false, then we're gonna do exactly if time elapsed is lower than timer player attack timer, then we do time elapsed plus equals time dot delta time. Okay, so reminder, time dot delta time is what allows us, when we're doing the movement up here, to normalize the movement to make it consistent, right? But this can also be used, so basically when we take a float, hold on, so these are floats, so f at the end, these are floats. What we can do is, by giving a float the value of time dot delta time, or in this case constantly adding to it, we can basically simulate a timer. So this is literally how you make timers. It's the simplest thing in the world, and it is incredibly useful. If you're making like a MOBA game, this is how you do cooldowns, right? If you're making anything that relies on cooldowns, on time like a timed mission or whatever the fuck, it's all basically using this logic here. And again, I'm only talking about Unity. I don't know how timers are done in other like in Unreal or in Godot or whatever, but this is how it's done in Unity, right? It's super simple. So for now, we're gonna leave the code like this, right? We're gonna go here. Okay. And I'm gonna show you guys how the timer works. So here we have the player attack cooldown timer, whatever, and here we have the time elapsed. Here it's -1, and this is only gonna go up as long as the player attack cooldown is, as long as this is below the player attack cooldown. So let's put it at 10. So basically, over the course of 10 seconds, this is going to go from 0 to 10, right? Let me press play. I'm not going to touch anything else. You guys are going to see. All right. See? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Boom. And now it stopped, right? But as you can see, it didn't quite stop perfectly, right? Because it's going up so fast that it almost never stops perfectly, right? So then what we're gonna do is else if time elapsed is greater or equal to timer, okay? Then what we do is can attack bool equals true, okay? So then, hold on. Yeah, can attack bool equals true. And then let's say we're gonna do attack cooldown time elapsed minus equals cooldown timer. There you go, right? So this is after cooldown has elapsed, player can attack again. Then reset the time elapsed. Oops, elapsed. There you go. There you go. Perfect. Okay. Now we're waiting for it to compile. Come on, you N-word. Come on. There you go. There you go. All right. So now here we have the can attack boolean, it's false. We have the timer. So after 10 seconds, it's going to become true. Okay. There you go. So now we're going to wait for it to go to 10. There you go. And now as you can see, this wasn't reset perfectly to 0. What we did is simply subtract 10 from its own value, right? So the idea behind this is that it just keeps it more consistent, right? It just, like, it doesn't really change much of anything, right? Like 0.009 seconds is not gonna change much of anything, right? Now, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna code it so that whenever the player collides with, let's say, an enemy, okay, using a trigger collision, okay, we are going to what we're gonna do is when the player collides, when the player is falling down and collides using a trigger collision, okay, and he collides with an enemy, because the player is falling down and only if the player can attack, he's going to do damage on the enemy and bounce back up, okay? That's what we're gonna do. So, so first we're going to create a very basic enemy script. So here we right click again, we go into our assets here in the project folder, we go into the scripts folder we created, we right click, and we're going to create a mono behavior script called enemy. Okay, for now, that's what we're gonna call it. The solution key outside the environment, press reload. Solution from disk, please press ignore it. So let me open the solution, reload. All right. So now, okay, there you go. So now because it reloaded, all the green stuff we had added has been removed, whatever. Okay. So there you go, enemy script. I'm gonna erase this. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start creating a few public variables. So public, core enemy vars, public int enemy HP, max enemy HP equals -1. Then public int current enemy HP equals 0. Then here in void start, which is going to do current enemy HP equals max enemy HP. All right, and then here we're not gonna do anything for now. Okay, so now hold on. As you can see here in the player manager, what we have is a rigid body that is not a trigger collider, right? But we said we wanted to deal damage using a trigger collider and a rigid body. So what we're gonna do is here we're gonna create a child entity. It's gonna be an empty game object, and we're going to call it player attack object, okay? And we're going to add to it a rigid body and also add to it a collider, a box collider. Move this up like that. It's going to be a trigger collider. And let's say it's going to be this big. How big is this thing? Yeah, all right, sure. Or I guess we can change it to... what's this? How big is this? 1.57. Oops. So we're gonna click here on the size. 1.57. There you go. So now this hitbox is the same as this one, right? Fairly simple. Or actually, hold on. I'm gonna change this one back up to 1. I'm gonna change this one also to 1. There you go. So now let's see, save. There you go. Also remember guys, like if you have any questions, if you need help with anything, let me know. Right? All right, there you go. So now we're doing this like that. Okay, perfect. All right, perfect. And I'm gonna increase the size of the plane by 2. There you go, just to make it a bit bigger, so that we have fewer chances of falling off. Now the test collider, I'm going to add a tag called enemy. Okay, there you go, enemy. All right. And then here, what I'm gonna do in the enemy is add variables allowing me to access other scripts. And we're going to remember private, player manager. And because it's private, we do underscore player manager script. There you go. And here on trigger enter, there you go. And then here with the player, we're also gonna do this on, no, exactly, not on the player. No, exactly. Okay, so hold on. So now how exactly am I going to do this? Okay, can attack. So I could have, so the thing is, okay, because the player manager script is attached to the player manager object, and this object already has a box collider and a rigid body collider, there's no real point in adding multiple colliders, but I'm not sure because I've never done this. So let me just ask ChatGPT. Oh, okay, there you go. All right, so can I all right, is it possible to use the onTrigger enter function in Unity 3D with an object that has a one rigid body but two colliders. One collider is a trigger collider, the other isn't. This is absolutely possible and actually very common in Unity to have a single game object with one rigid body and multiple colliders, where some colliders are true. Okay, so see, that I wasn't sure if I was able to do it, so I never had tried it. Okay, but this is actually good. This is going to simplify it a lot. Here's how it works. Unity checks each collider individually for whether it is a trigger. Is trigger equals true? Or collider, if a collider with is trigger equals true, involved in a collision, Unity will call. Perfect. Involved must be set up properly. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Okay. So, all right. So that's actually perfect. Okay. So we're going to keep the onTrigger enter here. OnTrigger enter here. Amazing. So how had we done it? The collision test. Exactly. Okay. So let's just copy paste this. So if, again, here it's other, we can just use other or whatever. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is if the player is above the object it's colliding with and can attack and other object is an enemy, deal damage to the enemy and bounce back. All right, so if other, so if can attack dot bool equals true and is falling equals true and transform dot position dot y, because again the y-axis determines the height, like the position in terms of how high or low something is greater than other dot game object dot transform dot position dot y. So as you can see, this is like a big if statement, right? Like there are a lot of conditions we want. So as we said, we can attack, we are falling, we are above it. And lastly, other dot compare tag is enemy. There you go. Then we close the parentheses and we do this. Now, as you can see, the if statement is so big it doesn't even fit on our screen anymore, right? So what I do is simply, whenever it gets a bit too big, I just remove this and I press enter and it works, right? Like the if statement still works perfectly fine, right? And then we're gonna do the same thing here. Okay, here it says that these parentheses are unnecessary. There you go, right? So now basically it's like if can attack bool is true and, so that means whenever you have and, it means that every condition that is around the and has to be true. If it was or, what it would say is this has to be true or all three of these have to be true, right? But because it's and, it means that this has to be true and this and this and this, right? And again, this is just, it's more visually, like it's easy, like it's less painful on the eyes, right? So we can attack is true, is falling is true, etc., etc., right? Now what we're gonna do here is go up and add a private enemy current enemy, enemy script. There you go, current enemy script. Now we go back down here. Here we can remove this nonsense. And now the first thing we're gonna do is current enemy script equals other dot get component enemy. There you go. So now what we just did is we updated the value of this variable, which is a variable of type enemy script, which means that now we have access to this script here, right? And then what we simply do is current enemy script dot current enemy HP minus equals attack player damage. Let's change it to player attack damage. There you go. Right, so I know I'm going fast. It's just I assume you guys are kind of trying to get used to it. What I just did is, let me press Control Z. I took this variable. I wanted to change its name. Right clicked, rename, clicked here, added this. There you go. Now this has been renamed. So now we just access this. Dot means we get a reference to its enemy HP variable, and then we subtract the player attack damage from it, right? And as I said, we wanted to bounce back. So now what I could do is copy paste this, right? Or I could just do this. Equals true. There you go, right? So now let's just wait for it to compile. Come on. Okay, player manager. We're going to add the player tag to it. Here's the box collider that is not a trigger. Here we're going to have another box collider that is going to be a trigger. And so this one here, we don't need it anymore. We're just going to remove it. All right. And then here, our test collider untagged, we're going to give it the enemy tag and it's a trigger. So now everything should work. It should work, but we can't attack yet, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh, there you go. See, now we're just going through it. All right, hold on. Okay, now it's not letting me attack it. Oh, okay, hold on, it's giving me errors. Object reference not set to an instance. Player object, collider, other. Oh, right. Because this doesn't have it has the collision test script, but it doesn't have the enemy script. So now I'm gonna click, hold, and drag and drop this here. Right, there you go. Enemy test, max enemy HP, let's put it at 100. Okay, so now it should work. So now when I press play, the current enemy HP is immediately going to be set to 100. If it's going to allow me. All right, there you go. Load up. There you go, 100, 100. Now we're going to click this here. Now we're waiting for the can attack There you go. So now, oh, hold on. There you go. All right, so now let's see. Test collider. There you go. And the reason why I added 2 HP to it is because here the player manager, our attack damage is -1. So we did -1 damage 2 times, right? All right, so hold on. Let's go back here. Well, actually, hold on. Let's go here and let's do, let's say 5 damage, whatever. And then here, clearly this didn't work as intended, right? So instead, let's just do this right here like that. See if this is actually gonna work better. Okay. All right, now we're just waiting for everything to compile. Yeah, the great healing mech jump attack. Yeah, masochist cube, exactly. All right. Now let's just lower the player attack to, let's say, 2.5 seconds. Just because I don't want to have to wait 10 seconds every time. Right? All right, so now we can jump. I'm spamming space, it's nothing's happening. All right, so now there you go. All right, now let me just see. Okay, perfect. And now if I click on the test collider, see, it's constantly losing HP, right? There you go. All right. There you go. Now, as yeah, but here's the thing. Our attack cooldown wasn't actually working, right? Because it's unfinished, right? Because what we have here is when the can attack boolean is false, the cooldown is going to work, and then once the cooldown is over, this becomes true, right? And hold on, let me just change the order, just because I personally prefer it that way. Like, we do all the, oh no, actually no, it was better before. Yeah, there you go, perfect, that's fine. Okay, so now what we want to do is, when it's here, we just do can attack boolean equals false. There you go. So now we should only bounce once and do damage once, right? But I think it's still gonna do double damage, okay? Because again, our player attack damage is 5, but if you saw it, it was subtracting 10 every time we touched it, right? So hold on. Let's see. And it might have something to do with the cooldown not being removed, basically. But we'll see, we'll see. Okay, so now here we have 5. All right. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so now I'm not jumping anymore. Now I'm just, okay, interesting. There you go. And now how much damage does the cube take? Let me see. Now it takes 5 damage. Okay, exactly. Okay. So yeah, so this had something to do with the fact that we weren't resetting the cooldown. But now that we're resetting the cooldown, it's not making me jump back up anymore, right? Which is weird. It's not supposed to do that, right? So now how do we fix this? Could it have something to do with, hold on, can attack boolean. So it's only, so basically it's only detecting this. All right. Yeah, so I think I know what I need to do. Okay, so what we're gonna do is the following. We're going to take this big if statement and separate it into multiple different if statements that are all going to work together. So the first thing we want is simple, is are we colliding with an enemy, right? So compare tag, because what I think the reason why the code isn't happening properly is because we have so many different conditions and they're all and, that means that the moment a single one of these conditions isn't being fulfilled, this stops happening, right? And the thing is, the moment this happens, even if it's the very last line of code, it stops all of this from happening, right? So what we're gonna do is we start with a simple, are we colliding with an enemy or not? If we are, then we're going to update this, right? Then we're going to do if, well, actually, then we're good. It's very simple. We're just gonna do this. Okay, so update current enemy script. Then the player bounce off of current enemy, right? And then if player, so make player deal damage to enemy only when able. So now we basically do this. If can attack bool equals true and is falling equals true, and transform dot position dot y is greater than other. Well, here I can do either other dot game object dot blah blah blah, or I can simply do current enemy dot transform dot position dot y, right? And now here I'm doing this. Now, once again, this is a bit too long, so we're just gonna do it like that. And then we're gonna do this like that. There you go. And now we're going to remove this here. I'm just gonna nullify it for now. There you go. Now let's see if this works. I think it should work, but I'm not sure. All right, now it's executing. And I'm going to increase the player timer back to 10 seconds. So that way it's gonna give us more than enough time to test the various if statements separately, right? So initially we start with, oh fuck, there you go. We start with not being able to attack. Can attack boolean is false, and our player attack cooldown time elapsed is 0, so we're not going to be able to attack for the first 10 seconds. So I'm going to try to rush and jump on the enemy to see if I can bounce up, right? And the enemy should not be taking any damage, right? So let's see. All right. There you go. All right, now we bounced off. All right, we're clicking on the test collider. Yeah, it still has its full HP. Now we're gonna click on this. Okay, now we can attack. Now we bounced off again. And the test collider has taken damage. Boom. There you go. We have our gameplay, right? We have our platformer. Woo! Only took us 2 hours. You know? And so now, for instance, what I could do is here in the player script, right? I can also do an else if statement, right? And I can do can attack boolean equals false, or blah, 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 is falling equals false, or what is it? Transform dot position dot y is lower or equal to current enemy script dot transform dot position dot y. There you go. And now we're closing this and we're doing this like that. And now once again, because it's long, we're just gonna do this, okay? Worth every drop of sweat, exactly. Now make it scramblo bimblo and put collectibles on the stage. Exactly. Yeah, so now, as you can see, here it's make player deal damage to the enemy only when able. And when is it able? When it can attack, while also falling, while also being above the enemy, right? So all three of these conditions have to be true, right? However, what we do is otherwise make the player take damage whenever they collide or touch the enemy. Whoops. God damn it. There you go. Enemy. So now the reason why this, instead of being and whatever, it's or, right? It's because for the player to be able to do damage, all three of these conditions have to be met. Like all three of them. You can't have 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 3 or 0 out of 3. It's 3 out of 3. All three of these have to be met at the same time. Then that means that the moment either one of these three isn't met, so this isn't met, or this isn't met, or this isn't met, or any combination, then the player is going to take damage, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the enemy script. We're going to add here public int, enemy attack damage equals, let's say, -1. And again, my personal way of doing things is that if I put -1 as a default value, that means I need to manually change it in the Unity editor. If I put 0, it means it's going to change on its own, right? So now we're going to have this here. And then here we're going to do HP, current player HP. So current player HP minus equals enemy script dot attack damage. There you go, right? So for now it's that simple, right? Now what I can eventually do is also potentially add some kind of like something similar to this, but simply change this value to make it to make the player like fly out, fly away based on something. So let's say let's just do this, right? No, forward, and then minus forward, right? So let's do this, right? So let's see if this is gonna work. It should deal damage, but I'm not sure if it's going to actually make the player bounce off. Or like get pushed back, I mean. I was about to suggest that you get pushed to... Yeah, exactly. All right, there you go. Player manager. All right. So we're gonna have 10 seconds. So what we're gonna do here is... Well, actually, hold on. Come on, pendejo. All right, there we go. hold on, I'm just gonna change this current player HP equals max player. Okay, so this is already set up. Hold on, I'm just gonna like that. Set up player object variable. Yeah, there we go. Okay, perfect. Now we're gonna go here. Now we're gonna wait for it to compile. Now I'm actually gonna give the player some HP just to, you know, have a value. Let's say the player also has 100 HP. Let's keep it simple. Keep it simple and stupid. That's a good rule of thumb in terms of game design. Simpler is best in the sense that keep it simple and stupid but intuitive, right? And give it depth through simplicity, which might sound counterintuitive, but the problem a lot of video game companies do, especially AAA games, is they just complexify their game to the point where it's not intuitive anymore, right? So max player HP, let's say 100. There you go. So now basically, in theory, I should lose a certain amount of HP. The problem is I did not set up the enemy. Hold on. Okay. I did not set up its damage value. So damage value is going to be 5 as well, right? Or let's say 1, right? Whatever. Let's say 1. And we're going to change this thing's name. So I double clicked here. If I double click quickly, it moves me to the game object, right? Like let me double click on the player manager, right? Double click on the test collider. If I click once, wait some time, click a second time, I can do test. I can change its name basically. So this is just a little fun fact. We changed the damage. Now there you go. All right. Okay. Now we're finally gonna test it out. Okay, and this is probably where we're gonna end the stream because I've been streaming for a little over 2 hours now. So all right. God damn. Ah! Well, it works. It definitely fucking works. Hold on. What I'm gonna do here is we're gonna go into the enemy script. We're gonna make things spicy, and we're gonna do public float enemy force f equals minus 1.f. Yeah, and the reason why the pushback is so high is because we're using the exact same add force as we did for the jumping, but because this jump force here is based on the gravity and stuff, it gets offset by the gravity when it pushes us up, right? But the problem is that this in this case it pushes us sideways, right? Which means that we don't have the gravity to offset it, right? So instead of using the jump force, yeah, the cube is aura farming. So instead of using the jump force, what we're gonna do is we're gonna replace this with enemy script dot for enemy force, right? So now it should be way less intense. But we'll see, who knows? All right. Let's see. Wait, we haven't set up the enemy force. Enemy force, we're gonna put it at 5, let's say. We're gonna start with 5. See how it goes. And we're also going to check because of the pushback, it distracted us, so we didn't check if I actually took damage. In theory, I should have taken damage, but we'll see, just to be sure, right? So here it's 5. Goddamn. Yeah, so even a strength of 5 is... So let's put a strength of 1. And let's see if 1 is going to be... Alright. Okay, no, exactly. Alright. Okay. So 1 still pushed us up quite a lot. Yeah, but it's less intense, basically. Okay. It's interesting. Did we take damage? Yes, we've taken damage 4 times because we've collided 4 times. Oh no, we're taking double damage. Okay, so once again, it's like fucking up a bit. Okay. So once again, we're having issues because here it's player manager dot transform dot forward. Yeah, it's the opposite, so it pushes us backward. And it's a force impulse. All right, interesting. Well, it's not working exactly as intended, right? But again, this is like, at this point we're getting into debugging, and I don't want to spend the whole tutorial debugging and everything, especially since I've had like a bit of a sore throat for a couple of days now, so doing all of this has been a bit difficult. Now this we're going to remove since it's no longer relevant, right? But I think you guys get the idea, right? Like, this is how we can do cool stuff, and I'm hoping that tomorrow I'm gonna be able to add a mechanic where we start shooting at enemies, right? Or maybe not at enemies, but just some kind of shooting mechanic to show you another way of doing collisions, right? Because basically what I'm probably gonna do for tomorrow's stream and probably even next week's stream is to actually show the different kinds of collisions, right? So actually, maybe tomorrow I'm not gonna do the projectile shooting. It might have to wait until next week, because what I want to do is also show a lot of the edge cases with this type of collision detection, right? And to show how some of the problems that I mentioned last week, which is basically that right now it works because I only have one player and one enemy, right? But what happens when I collide? Well, like I jump on top of an enemy, and so I deal damage to the enemy, but at the same time, I collide with another enemy that I'm not jumping on top of, and he's like next to me or above me or whatever. Like what happens when I basically collide with 2 enemies at the same time, right? Like, spoiler alert, it's gonna cause a bunch of problems, right? Like, basically this script here is not gonna run properly when I collide with 2 enemies at the same time, right? So let me just why is everything so complicated with you? Continue to Discord. All right. There you go. Let me get, okay, invite people. All right, copy. And now let me put something tells me that Deadly Cube's name is Carmelo. Goddamn. Hold on, that's amazing. There you go. It's called Carmelo now. All right. There you go. So this is an invite for the server for anybody who sees it in chat or whatever. I think most of you guys are already in. But again, like, I just put this up for you guys. Just wait until you get to slopes for character movement and trying to figure out how to stop the player from... Oh, I know. there's a reason why I decided to make a game about sci-fi spaceships. It's because you don't need to worry about gravity or any of that bullshit in space, right? You don't need to worry about animation. You don't need to worry about any of that shit. And so, like, that's the main reason why my game is a strategy game where you control a spaceship in space, right? Believe me. There's a reason why I told you that today is the first day in my life where I've coded a jumping mechanic, right? And it still took me 4 hours to make sure everything worked properly and everything. Like, trust me, okay? So let's save everything up. There you go. All right. So yeah, so that's the making a platformer part 1, right? Like, we did some really basic stuff, right? Let's see. Let's see if when adding the new code, if it's gonna work. God, it takes so long for it to do everything. All right. Let's put this back to 2.5. There you go. All right. All right. All right. Now let's jump above. Perfect. And now we're not above. Oops. God damn it. By the way, I'm shit at platformers. Just so you know. All right. Okay. Hold on. Now let's put it at 10 seconds. There you go. There you go. Yeah, so now it's pushing us. Oh, Jesus Christ. Carmelo, stop! Ah! Oh, Jesus. Yeah, Carmelo got the best of me. And yeah, I'll try to figure a way to oh, maybe I could use maybe some sort of Google Drive or something like that. I'll see. I'm not gonna make any promises just because I've never done this before, but I'm gonna try to figure out a way to share the project. And when I figure it out, I'm gonna drop it in the resources section. So hold on. That's Fat Gwyneth Paltrow, by the way. So I'm gonna drop it in here in the game dev resources. Or maybe I'm gonna, hold on, let me create a new channel. It's gonna be called tutorials. Yeah, tutorials. There you go. So I'm gonna drop it here, right? And edit channel, permissions, everyone, view channel, man, no. Send messages, nope. Add reactions, yes. Nope. Read, yeah. Save changes. So now, guys, for those of you who are already in the server, let me know if, well, actually I can look it up. I'm retarded. Server settings, roles, view server as, yeah, okay, I can, yeah, perfect, okay, perfect. All right. Yeah, so I'm gonna probably, like, once I figure out how to send it, I'm probably gonna send a compressed version. So let me give you an example, okay? So hold on. Okay, so go here. Unity. Okay. So here I have Unity, and here I have all of my files. So I'm gonna, like, which one is it? It's game dev tutorials. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna compress it, but I don't think it's going to allow me to just drag and drop it because it's gonna be probably too big. So then I'm gonna have to figure out a way to, so I might leave a Google Drive link or something like that. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure yet, but I'll figure something out, right? And when it's done, I'm gonna message everyone in the server or whatever. So join the server, guys, if you want access to like the projects and all that stuff, right? Yeah. So I'm probably gonna use a Google Drive, but yeah, we'll see. God, I'm hungry. So yeah, so this is probably gonna be the end of today's stream. Tomorrow we're gonna continue. I'm gonna show you guys a bunch of different what's it called, like different edge cases with the collisions, and then we'll see. In the meantime, if you guys want, think of certain mechanics you would like to see in this tutorial that I'm making right now, this type of like weird platformer-esque tutorial. Think of different mechanics you might be interested in seeing, so that I can start like adding them little by little, right? But yeah, so that's what we did today. I hope it was useful. I hope it was helpful. I hope you guys managed to learn a lot and weren't lost while watching this. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time, I guess. And yeah, if you have any questions, just send them to me on the Discord in between streams and stuff. So yeah, thanks for watching me, guys. I'm still shocked so many of you guys are actually watching me so consistently. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow, same time at noon tomorrow. And again, the stream's probably gonna be like another like an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. All right, take care, boys. I'll see you guys next time.